What if I told you that some of the best gaming experiences do not come from big-budget AAA titles? We've curated a list of 15 indie titles from the past year that will make you feel what it's like to play a game that values your time. From haunting narratives to perfect mechanics, these games offer a transformative experience that will stay with you forever. We have a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. Sword of the Sea. So this one is from Giant Squid, same team that gave us Abzu and the Pathless. So you already know you're in for something that looks like a moving painting. But here's what's wild. It's not just a walking simulator with pretty visuals. You're on this hoverboard sword thing, carving through these massive desert landscapes like you're in a skate park designed by nature. The game calls it a hover sword, and it moves like a snowboard and a surfboard all at once. It's one of those games where the movement itself is the point. You're not just going from point A to point B. You're flowing. You're pulling off tricks, catching air off these crumbling ruins, and the more you move, the more the world around you changes. Sand dunes literally transform into shimmering oceans as you ride through them. That's not just a visual trick, it's the whole gameplay loop. You're resurrecting an ancient sea just by surfing across the desert. The vibe is meditative but also kind of exhilarating at the same time. Austin Wintory did the score again, so expect that same emotional swell you felt in Journey. And the best part? It hit PS Plus day one. So if you've got a subscription, you've got no excuse not to try this. It's the kind of game that reminds you why you fell in love with indie titles in the first place. No bloat, no map icons, just pure, intentional artistry wrapped around a movement system that feels incredible under your fingers. Look, Hades 2 is one of the titan of last year. Supergiant Games somehow did it again. You'd think following up a game as perfect as the first Hades would be impossible. But Malinois's journey is just as addictive as Zagreus's was. Maybe more. The structure is familiar. You escape, you die, you upgrade, you go again. But the execution is cleaner, the systems are deeper, and on PS5, those particle effects are just chef's kiss. You're not fighting your way out of the underworld this time. You're diving into it. Malinois is Zagreus's sister, a witch trained in the arts of witchcraft and shadow manipulation. And she's trying to take down Kronos, the titan of time itself. The gods are back, the boons are back, but now there's a whole new layer with these elemental affinities and a tarot-like upgrade system called the Grasp that replaces the old mirror. What really gets me is the variety. You've got your main run, but there's also this side mode where you protect the crossroads, which is basically a mini horde mode that breaks up the loop nicely. And the weapon aspects are weirder this time, more experimental, the umbral flames, the sister blades. Each one changes how you approach combat in meaningful ways. The early access period was already incredible, and the full 1.0 release just cemented it. If you liked the first one, you're going to lose weeks to this. If you haven't played Hades at all, start here. It's the kind of game that defines a genre. Lost Records, Bloom and Rage.
Thanks for waiting. The new barback calls out if he so much as sneezes. Everything okay, miss?
This game came from the original Life is Strange team. Don't Nod's founding members, specifically. So right away, you know you're in for something that cares deeply about character, atmosphere, and making you feel things you didn't expect to feel. This one's a 90s-themed supernatural mystery, and it hits all those nostalgic notes perfectly. You're following this group of teenage girls in the summer of 1995. They form a band, they hang out, they record everything on this old camcorder. But then something happens, something weird. And the game jumps forward to the present day where they're all adults and that old mystery is resurfacing. The structure is split into two parts. Bloom is the past, Rage is the present. And the way the two timelines talk to each other is genuinely smart. The supernatural element is there, but it's subtle. It's more about the relationships, the secrets, the weight of things left unsaid. The voice acting is fantastic, the soundtrack is packed with 90s bangers, and the art direction has that same cozy but creepy vibe that made Arcadia Bay so memorable. It's episodic, but both parts are out now, so you can play the whole thing without waiting. If you cried during Life is Strange, you'll cry here. If you didn't, you might still find yourself getting emotional over a VHS tape. Absolum. To be honest, this one caught me off guard. It's a hand-drawn beat-em-up roguelite, which sounds like a weird combination on paper. Streets of Rage meets Hades? Kind of. But the execution is what makes it special. The art style is raw, gritty, almost sketchy, like someone drew the whole thing with charcoal on rough paper. It gives the world this dirty, lived-in texture that fits the brutal combat perfectly. You're playing as this warrior in a dying world, and you're fighting through hordes of monsters, each run offering different upgrades, different paths, and different challenges. And the combat is weighty, like you feel every punch, every block, every impact. There's also a parry system that rewards perfect timing, and when you nail it, you get this satisfying slowdown effect that makes you feel like an absolute god. What I like about this one is the pacing. You know, beat-em-ups can get repetitive fast, but the roguelite structure in this game keeps things fresh. You're unlocking new abilities, new characters, new enemy types across runs, and the bosses are huge multi-phase encounters that demand you actually learn their patterns. It's from some of the same team behind Dead Cells, I think, so there's definitely that DNA in there. Tight controls, high skill ceiling, but accessible enough that you don't need to be a pro to enjoy it. If you like games that demand a little bit of mastery but reward you generously for it, Absolum is worth your time. Coming in next, we have Dispatch.
You want to get people hurt? Get people killed?
A real hero puts their ass on the line.
Here's the thing. It's a superhero mystery game, but it's not about punching villains or saving the city from some giant laser. It's about the aftermath. You're not playing a superhero. You're playing someone who works at a dispatch center for superheroes. You're the person on the radio, the one coordinating the response, the one making the calls that actually save lives. It's from some of the writers behind the Telltale games, so the dialogue system is deep, the choices matter, and the characters feel like real people with real problems. You're investigating a mystery. Something went wrong on a mission, a hero is missing, and you have to piece together what happened by talking to people, examining evidence, and making tough calls. The writing is also sharp. It's funny when it needs to be, tense when it matters, and surprisingly emotional in places. There's no punching, no superpowers. Just good old-fashioned detective work with a superhero coat of paint, which is such a fresh take, right? Everyone does the what if superheroes were dark and gritty thing, but nobody does what if superheroes were just another job and you're the 911 operator. It's the kind of game that respects your brain. You're not just clicking through dialogue trees, you're actively piecing together a puzzle, and the game trusts you to figure it out. If you liked The Wolf Among Us or Disco Elysium's dialogue-first approach, Dispatch will be right up your alley. Hell Is Us.
They're gone.
Choose your next move wisely.
Hell Is Us is for people who are tired of map markers. Seriously. There are no waypoints, no glowing trails, no objective markers telling you exactly where to go. You're dropped into this super atmospheric world, think Eastern European rural landscapes mixed with brutalist architecture and this constant sense of dread, and you have to figure everything out yourself. It's an action-adventure game, but the combat is deliberate, almost Souls-like in its weight. You're fighting these things called hollows, enemies that are basically empty shells of humans, and they're creepy as hell. But here's the catch, you have to discover how to defeat them. The game doesn't tell you. You find notes, you observe their behavior, you experiment with your tools. It's a game about exploration in the truest sense. The vibe is what really sells it. There's this constant fog, this oppressive silence broken only by strange sounds in the distance. You never feel safe. Even when you're not in combat, there's this tension, this feeling that something is watching you. The developers call it non-narrative immersion, which is a fancy way of saying they want you to feel lost and scared and curious all at once. It's not for everyone. If you need direction, if you get frustrated easily, this might not be your thing. But if you're the type of player who loves discovering things on your own, who hates when games hold your hand, who wants to feel like you're actually exploring an unknown place instead of following a GPS, Hell Is Us is a gift. By Sweet Carole. This one is a trip because on the surface it looks like a lost Disney movie from the 90s. Hand-drawn animation, that soft, warm aesthetic, characters that feel like they belong in a classic fairy tale. But then you actually start playing and you realize real quick that something is deeply wrong, because this is a horror game, straight up. It's set in early 20th century England. You're playing as this girl named Lana searching for her missing friend Carol, and your path leads you through this orphanage and eventually into this twisted kingdom. And that kingdom, ruled by an owl, and swarms of these things called tar bunnies that will absolutely murder you. The contrast is what makes it stick with you. You're exploring these beautifully animated environments and then suddenly you're sneaking around trying not to get caught, solving puzzles, and dealing with enemies that feel ripped out of a nightmare. There's even a mechanic where you transform into a rabbit to escape threats, which sounds cute until you're being hunted. It's from the creator of the Remothered series, so the guy knows horror. But this isn't just jump scares, it's atmospheric dread wrapped in this gorgeous, nostalgic art style that makes the horror hit so much harder. Because you weren't expecting it. That's the brilliance of it. Tales of Iron 2, Whiskers of Winter. So I heard you're a Souls fan, right? This one is right in your lane. The first game was already a solid little indie Souls-like with rats and swords, but the sequel expands everything. The world is bigger, the combat is more brutal, and the story is fully narrated by Doug Cockle. You know, Geralt's voice. So right away you've got that deep, gravelly voice telling you about your rat kingdom being threatened by these giant flying beasts called the Dark Wings. And this time, you're playing as Arlo, the young heir to this northern wasteland, and you're basically trying to unite the clans after everything goes sideways. The combat is fast, it's challenging, and it's all about timing your parries and dodges. You've got dodge rolls, parry bashes, and executions that are just brutal to watch. And what I like about this one is the variety. You can go in with a spear for reach, a mace for heavy hits, or a bow for ranged stuff. And there are these giant beast hunt side quests where you track down legendary monsters for rare crafting materials. The boss fights are also genuinely tough. You're not just mashing buttons and hoping for the best. You have to learn patterns, adapt your loadout, and actually think about what you're doing. In addition, you get to build up your settlement. You can also upgrade the smithy, unlock better meals, and expand your options. It adds that layer of progression that makes the whole thing feel meaningful. If you liked the first one, you're going to love this. If you haven't played the first one, you can jump in here just fine. The Midnight Walk. The Midnight Walk is one of those games where I just kept saying, how did they do this out loud while playing? Because the entire world was handcrafted in actual clay, like real physical clay. Then they scanned it into the game using just phone cameras. The developers literally walked around their office showing off these little sculpted figures they made by hand, and that's the game you're playing. It's a first-person horror puzzle game with this stop-motion aesthetic that feels like you're inside a Leica film. You know, Coraline, Kubo, that vibe. But it's dark. You play as this character called the Burnt One, and you're walking through this twisted landscape with a little companion named Potboy, who's basically a walking pot with a face who shoots embers to light things for you. The developers call it cozy horror, which sounds like nonsense until you experience it. Because it is creepy, but there's also something nostalgic and almost comforting about the clay textures and the weird, misshapen characters. There's a dedicated button to close your eyes. You can literally blink to reveal secrets or just will away terrifying monsters like a kid hiding under the covers. Later in the game, you get this matchstick gun that lets you light things from a distance, and the levels get genuinely tense. Enemies called Grinners will chase you down, and their kill animation is apparently horrifying. It's the kind of experience that sticks with you not because it's scary, but because it's unlike anything else you've played. Baby steps.
Oh!
Deep breath. You're okay. You're with Jim?
I'm Jim.
No, I'm Jim.
Yeah, no, you're Jim.
Just relax. Nothing to be ashamed of. Everybody falls. Let's get you on your feet.
I'm good.
What's your name, son?
I'm Nate.
Look, I need to be honest about this one. This is a walking simulator, but not in the artsy game where you just listen to voiceovers way. No, this is a literal walking simulator. You control each step, each foot individually, with physics. You are physically controlling a grown man in a onesie trying to put one foot in front of the other. And it is hilarious, it's frustrating, it's weirdly touching, and it's from the same team that made Getting Over It and Ape Out, so you already know they're not playing fair. And this time, you're playing as Nate, this unemployed guy with nothing going for him, and somehow he discovers he has the power to walk. And that's it, that's the premise. And you're hiking up this giant mountain, placing each footstep yourself, trying not to fall over, trying not to slide down a hill, trying not to just absolutely eat dirt because you leaned too far forward. The world is shrouded in this mist, and the music builds dynamically as you move. They say it's made up of hundreds of different beats and vibes that layer on top of each other depending on where you are and what you're doing. So when you're making progress, it feels triumphant. When you're falling on your face for the 10th time, the music reflects that too. And by the way, there's a fully simulated onesie soilage system. The onesie gets dirty as you play, and the hats are non-collectible, which is just the developers trolling completionists. It's the kind of joyful, stupid, genuinely clever game that reminds you why indie games exist. Ender Magnolia, Bloom in the Mist. If you're into Metroidvanias, Ender Magnolia Bloom in the Mist is absolutely an essential game. It's the sequel to Ender Lilies, which was already a gorgeous, melancholic little masterpiece. But Magnolia takes everything that worked and just expands it. The art style is hauntingly beautiful, this dark, gothic, almost watercolor aesthetic that makes every area feel like a painting you shouldn't be walking through. The story picks up decades after the events of the first game. There's this thing called the Death Rain that happened, and now the world is dealing with these corrupted artificial life forms. And once again, you're playing as Lilac, an attuner who can purify the blighted creatures around her, and you're basically going through this fallen kingdom trying to figure out what happened. The combat is still fluid. You've got a range of abilities, you're swapping between different attacks mid-combo, and the boss fights are challenging without feeling unfair. It's got that Souls-like rhythm where you have to learn patterns, but it's more forgiving than something like Hollow Knight. What really gets me about this one is the atmosphere. The music, the environmental storytelling, the way the world slowly reveals its secrets as you unlock new traversal abilities. It's a game that respects your time and your intelligence. It trusts you to figure things out, and when you do, it feels earned. The first Berserker Khazan.
I thought if we defeated him, we could save the world. But I was wrong.
So this one surprised me. On paper, it's another high-octane action RPG in a market absolutely flooded with them. But then you see it, and the visual style just grabs you. It's got this cel-shaded, almost anime-inspired look that makes everything pop in a way that feels distinct. It's not trying to look realistic, it's trying to look cool, and it succeeds. It's set in the Dungeon Fighter Online universe, which I know nothing about, but that doesn't matter. You're playing as this general named Khazan who gets betrayed, tortured, and left for dead, and then he forms this bond with a ghost entity that gives him powers. So he has to find his way back and get his revenge. Such a classic stuff, right? But the execution is where it shines. The combat in this game is kind of deep. You've got 3 weapon types, and each one has its own skill tree, its own rhythm, its own flow. So basically, you're not just picking a weapon and spamming attacks. You're building into a playstyle, unlocking new combos, and genuinely customizing how you approach fights. And speaking of fights, the boss battles are also memorable. Each one has distinct patterns, exploitable weaknesses, and they will punish you if you get greedy. But there are 2 difficulty settings. So if you're not looking to bang your head against a wall for hours, you can dial it back and just enjoy the ride. It's approachable without losing what makes these games satisfying. Blueprints. Blueprints is the one that made me feel like a genius and also made me feel like an idiot, and sometimes both in the same session. It's a first-person puzzle roguelike developed by Dog Bomb. And what's great is that there's no combat in this game. Blueprints is a game where you're essentially designing the floor plan of a shifting mansion called Mount Holly as you explore it. Every door you open, you're choosing which room comes next. And the rooms reset every day. So you're drafting your path through this manner, deciding which rooms to add to the floor plan, managing resources, trying to figure out how to reach this mysterious room. And every room has its own challenge, its own secret, its own way of either helping you or completely screwing you over. The thing that makes it special is that you're not just solving puzzles inside the rooms. The entire structure is the puzzle. You're making decisions that affect what you'll have access to later. You're trying to remember which rooms worked, which ones didn't, which combinations unlocked something you needed. And when you finally make it to a new area, when you figure out a sequence that actually works, it feels incredible. It's from Raw Fury, who have a track record of publishing weird, wonderful stuff. And it's on PS Plus Extra, which is just a gift, honestly. If you like smart, stylish games that reward you for paying attention, this one's for you. Hollow Knight Silksong. So yeah, it actually happened. After years of memes, after years of waiting, after years of people losing their minds over every vague hint, Team Cherry finally dropped Silksong last year. And I'll just say it, it's every bit the masterpiece we hoped for. This time, you're playing as Hornet. She's faster, more acrobatic, more aggressive than the Knight was. Her movement is just straight up better. You've got this needle-based combat system that feels fluid and responsive, and the world of Farloom is massive, like bigger than Hollow Nest massive. Over hundreds of enemies, lots of new bosses, and also lots of benches scattered around. It's a big game, to be honest. The structure is a little different too. There's also a proper quest system now, and it gives you direction without holding your hand. You still have to explore, you still have to find things yourself, but there's more of a framework guiding you. And the difficulty? It's still there. This is not a game that compromises. Previews at Gamescom and E3 all talked about how challenging it is, how demanding it is, how you need to be ready to meet it at its level. But that's what makes the victories feel earned. That's what Hollow Knight was always about. And Silksong delivers that same grueling, beautiful experience at a scale that honestly feels absurd for an indie team. Clair Obscur Expedition 33.
68. Elodie's expedition.
You know the commanders of every expedition.
You know, this is the big one. It's a turn-based RPG that looks better than most AAA games. The visuals are absolutely stunning. This painterly Belle Epoque aesthetic mixed with this dark, oppressive atmosphere. It feels like a moving painting. The premise is wild. Every year, this entity called the Paintress wakes up, touches a number on this monolith, and everyone of that age just disappears. And this year, she touched 33. So you're playing as this group of soldiers, all 33 or younger, who decide they're not going to wait to die. They're going to march into the Paintress's territory and stop her. The combat system is a hybrid of turn-based strategy and real-time action. You're timing your attacks, parrying enemy strikes, dodging at the last second. It's not just menu-based. You're engaged. You're reacting. And when you land a perfect parry, when you break an enemy's guard, it feels tactile in a way turn-based games usually don't. It swept the awards season for a reason. The music, the voice acting, the sheer ambition of it. This is a game that feels like a landmark. It's the kind of title that reminds you what the medium is capable of when people take risks. And it's proof that indie games aren't just filling gaps between AAA releases. Sometimes they're setting the standard. So yeah, that's the list of 15 indie PlayStation 5 games from 2025 that you need to play immediately. If you like this video, click like, and if you're not yet subscribed, now is the best time to do so. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.